Hello. 3:03 p.m. Thursday, July 3rd, one day before 4th of July in the United States of America. This is Mark Kulak. One more year, the United States reaches its 250th birthday. That would be the year 2026. One more year. It's kind of cool. Get to live both through the 200th and the 250th celebration. So, if I make it, hopefully we will. Not for me, then for other people. I don't know what title today's of this show is. I have several articles, and I'm of course doing you a disservice by not even having them queued up. Regarding nuclear power, the revival of nuclear energy in the United States of America, and artificial intelligence, AI, big data computing, etc. A couple of key points here. Mark Kulak, KULACZ. You can get a catalog, go to my catalog of videos on housatonic.live, HOUSATONIC.LIVE. That is actually a URL, a functioning URL of a website, or HousatonicITS.com. I have a very large online archive. It's all free. That's taken me several tens of thousands of hours of research to put together. It's still growing. I go through spurts of putting things in there. And the thing about an archive is that it takes time. You don't really notice all the results at once, and there's things, I have topics which I have put, and I'm thankful that Jonathan Cooey of Giggle and Biological covered one of them, just dozens or hundreds of hours in individual things, and it's not always clear at the moment what's going to be important and what's not. If you're an analyst for a long enough time and have some success, you'll find that you develop instincts for this. Plenty of times I'm wrong, but usually I have a sense of when something is going to be important, and even if it may not be valuable immediately, I tend to know where to invest the time, knowing that it's going to pay off later. That has been to my detriment in my career, trust me. Where I have a boss that says, look, we need this done now, and I'll be like, I got to do this other thing, I know it's going to pay off. I usually just dig myself into a hole. But look, it's worked out. Here I am. So I've invested a lot into that archive. So today I wanted to tie together several subjects. We've talked about big data, lots of data. The largest, most heavily funded, longest running scientific project in all of human history, all of human civilization that we know of anyways. I just loosely refer to it as the Human Genome Project. Now, there was a formal in the United States, actually it was a worldwide consortium, Human Genome Project, which kind of sort of wrapped up around 2001 or 4 or something like that. But that's just really one smaller part of a larger, longer running project where some people in humankind are seeking to attain the knowledge of how to take control of the evolution of the human species. There you go.
It is believed by some that
humans have the cognitive capability to understand the world well enough that they can no longer simply be at the mercy of all of the forces of the universe, that they can actually control, much more control when it's time to die, more control over our ability to adapt to different environments, our limitations of needing certain temperatures and conditions on Earth make it very difficult for us to, as a species, I guess, to travel, to get off the Earth, to go to far away places. It is seen that this is a necessary part. Now, as a Christian and as a certainly anything but a good Christian or a flawless Christian, I'm not here to push that. I need to deal with my own problems first. But I don't see anything against my religion necessarily with scientific endeavors, trying to understand, how we work, trying to understand the material of the universe, and so on. And matter of fact, this is probably all bull, but I think the Creator would be pleased with us showing such admiration and curiosity. However, buried within this pursuit is the temptation to do some of the worst things imaginable. Such as converting the general population, or as much of it as possible, without people's knowledge, and definitely not without their consent, obviously, into that of the status of experimental test animals, because it is understood, it is believed, the ability to test on humans, real humans, not mice or ferrets, to test on humans and to collect data from humans is necessary to attain that level of knowledge of humans, and then maybe to explore ways to accelerate and take control of our own evolution. That's what it's believed. So the only way this can be done is to subject people to medical experimentation. And if you know about experimentation on plants or primates, it's usually destructive. The nature of how we figure out how things work is to destroy them. By destroying things, you can understand what is not supposed to be done. You can understand the limits, and then thereby you can make hypotheses which can then be further tested about exactly how things work. I mean, if you want to figure out how a vacuum cleaner works, usually without a manual, they take it apart. Old stories about, young kids would take apart radios or whatever, trying to understand how they work. You want to understand how an engine works? You should see the inside of an engine. You can understand the operations, but if you want to understand exactly how it's built and in a manner that you may be able to improve it, you need to tear it apart. You need to break it. Unfortunately, in order to take control of the evolution of the human species, to no longer simply be people that are, we're born and then we run around trying to get some basil and steak together, have another generation, be old and then die, and then over and over and over again, maybe some wars in the middle. You need to take control of our own evolution. That's the only way. We'll ever break out of that cycle. Now, I don't know if it's ever possible to break out of that cycle. I don't know. But I'm not sure if there's anything, at least against my own religion. And as long as everything's done above board, I don't think there's anything immoral about it either. However, the temptation, the seduction of taking control over the evolution of the human species is such a powerful thing that I believe it has given some people they can actually justify doing some of the most horrible things which have ever been recorded. They can justify it. They consider a noble lie. They can consider it in the best interest of the long term of the human species. They'll say, look, eventually there's going to be the return of the Ice Age, which I guess we're only in a small reprieve of right now. There'll be an asteroid. There'll be some condition where all people will die unless we can control our evolution well enough so that we could, at least as a species, survive such an event. So there's a lot of people making justifications for that right now. And who knows? Maybe there really is going to be some big rock that's going to melt everyone alive on Earth in 50 years. I don't know. I mean, that someone's figured something like that out. Who knows? Maybe. I don't know. But what I do know is that this is where the battle is. And so in order to get control of the evolution of the human species, you need to break a lot of eggs. You're going to need to test a lot of people. You're going to need to subject them to a lot of different things. And after an experiment is done, of course, as much data needs to be collected as possible. Now, humans are not simply something that you can only learn within an event that kills them. Simply by collecting data on people, data about their heart rate, their body temperature, their caloric intake, what they eat, what they watch, where they are, who they meet, what they read, what they study, where is their food from, are they eating grapes from this country or that country. The more data that you can aggregate, the more potentially you can feed all this data into a computer and then come out with some information about what matters and what doesn't matter, and then how to lengthen life, how to improve cognitive capabilities, how to avoid cognitive damage, perhaps. This is the theory. So you need a lot of people providing a lot of data. All right, I think we can agree on that. The discussion right now in the United States of America is about wearables devices where, they'll track a lot of this data. And I've made mention before, and I've mentioned this before, it's not very popular, my take on this, but look, it's sort of like I'm not a Grateful Dead fan. I don't hate them, okay? I'm not a Grateful Dead hater or lover, but I have respect for what Grateful Dead did during their live shows. And that is actually, they encouraged, this is my understanding, maybe it's a mythology, I don't know. They encouraged people to record their live shows. And they would actually provide jacks where people could plug in recording devices and take the live show home. And their Grateful Dead's belief was, look, after we're done, it's over. So why not allow people to immortalize our music? And they still sold a ton of albums. And they made a lot of money going to shows. People would actually go to shows knowing they could record them. So in a way, for them, there was this virtuous cycle, which made them even more popular. But they believed, look, we're playing, let people record it, right? What's the harm? And they can do with it what they want. And look, data could be collected from me, could be collected from you. It doesn't really cost anything. And if it can keep someone else busy, I don't see the harm. I don't. Now, I believe that if people don't want to participate in this, that's absolutely their right. I'm no technocrat or anything, but I'm not against it either. I'm not like, oh no, the AI is going to take everything over. I'm not really worried about that. But that said, it's really about collecting a lot of data and collecting data on the people that are here right now, because once people are gone, they're gone. And unfortunately, because of the nature of the current demographics on the planet, because of the nature of population pyramids, there's going to be a lot less people in the future than there are now. Things have changed. The dynamics of families, the prioritization of more people becoming educated, pressures to reduce the number of children which are born. I mean, there's a lot of factors which have played in, okay? Not to mention possibly dietary reasons, who knows, have led to a situation where the birth rate is declining rapidly on the planet, and there's going to be less people in the future. Humans aren't simply something that can be spun up 100,000 at a time like mice for more medical experimentation. Very difficult to get a full-grown human. It's a lot of work. So anyways, there needs to be a lot of data collection now, urgently. And you'll notice in the news that there's a lot of pressure to build a lot of data centers, a lot of computer centers, to store data, to sort it out, and then to analyze it somehow. Now, I don't think it's actually known yet exactly what data is going to be most valuable, or how to structure it, how to organize it, or even how to analyze it. I think there's actually a tremendous amount of debate over that. But at least it is understood that there's going to be less people in the future. In order to take control of the human species ever, we need to start collecting data now and figure it out later. So, lots of data. And you look in the news, $500 billion plan to invest in artificial intelligence and data centers was one of the very first things that President Trump announced. I think his second or third day of office. So if it's true, follow me here, okay? If the plan is to collect a lot of data on a lot of people, both now and maybe even more data on people in the next generation of people, and organize it and save it, okay, that would mean that after all that data is collected, the plan would be to assess it, to analyze it. So in other words, the data that needs to be analyzed is not here yet. It's still being collected. It's in the infantile state still, but maybe within the next 20 to 40 years, it will be more matured. And now, of course, they're still going to need another many decades to collect more and more data. But the point is that the data to analyze in bulk is really not there yet. I think that makes sense. All right. But here is the part of that equation which I think I have overlooked until recently, and I think just about everyone is not talked about in mainstream media or alternative media. And this is going to blow your mind, and it's going to change the way that you view many things that are currently happening in the world right now. Are you ready for this? If the data isn't going to be fully collected or collected in the quantity that it needs to be for another several years or several decades, that means that the vast quantity of energy that's going to be required to process all of that data is not going to be needed until several decades from now. Does that make sense? If running all these computers today, and we're going to need even more energy tomorrow to run all of these data centers, to process all of this data that will be collected. If that's true, then knowing that computer centers are right now, I think, at least 10% of the world's energy consumption, and it's going to be getting more. If that's true, then that means that the big surge in energy consumption to process all of this data is not going to happen for another maybe few decades. It makes sense, doesn't it?
In the meantime, small iterative improvements will be made in what data to collect and how to organize it and how to process it. One of the things which artificial intelligence includes is not just a lot of computing to process a lot of information, but also the ability to have an algorithm that actually determines how to process the information. If you actually look up the computer program Dendral, Dendral, of which Dr. Joshua Lederberg was a main contributor to, the early era of AI wasn't just having big computers to do a lot of math. It was actually determining what the algorithm is that needs to be handled. Right now, through AI and experimentation, they need to determine the full collection of data that needs to be collected from all people and how to collect it in the first place in order to put it into the computers in the future, at least theoretically, and then get meaningful, useful outputs which can be used as part of that augmentation of the human race and effectively taking control of the evolution of the human species. We don't even know what those computing algorithms are. They are, it's safe to say, extensive and it's going to use more data than we can imagine, and a lot of data that right now we don't even know how to collect, much less what it even is. There might be things that need to be collected that we don't even know about right now. So there's multiple iterations required, and these earlier iterations are going to require a certain level of computing resources and data storage, but that quantity is, I think it's safe to say, going to grow at least one order of magnitude, maybe even much more so in the future, thus requiring even more data centers and even more power.
The data centers are not going to need their peak data for another several decades. Okay, it seems obvious. Why am I harping on this? How is society, I won't be here in another several decades, how will civilization get the electricity to power all of those data centers in a few decades, which are going to need probably 1 or 2 orders of magnitude more electricity than they need now? Where is the energy going to come from? Is the plan to have more hydroelectric and solar panels? Is the plan to have more oil dug up and burned then and used to make electricity? No. There's only one type energy storage method which can be created today and put into a mountain and will lose almost none of its efficiency in several decades. That is enriched uranium and nuclear fuels.
This room holds enough energy to power a large city for 3 years. It's inside a very special bank in far eastern Kazakhstan that contains valuable nuclear material. as a backup fuel supply for countries that rely on nuclear power. This secure facility was set up by the International Atomic Energy Agency and stores 90 tons of low enriched uranium in case a country is unable to get its nuclear fuel on the open market or by any other means. The uranium for this latest delivery originated in Kazakhstan and was processed in Russia before being transported by high-security train to complete the bank's stocks.
So, what you're seeing today is a long-term plan to make all of the data centers use nuclear fuels. Small form nuclear reactors is the big rage. And in fact, we'll watch a short video here from Wall Street Journal. There's actually discussion right now of reopening 3 Mile Island and other decommissioned nuclear power plants in the United States of America. That's crazy. I thought we were done with nuclear fuels. Or maybe a decision was made in 1980 to stop burning nuclear fuel, knowing that what we really needed to do was to save it for the future, because it's the only form of preserved energy that once it's made, you can store it somewhere. You could store it for hundreds of years after it's made, and it will lose almost none of the investment of energy to make it. Imagine charging a battery and having it stay 100% full for several hundred years. Nothing can do that other than enriched uranium and other similar fuels. None. So what's probably happening today, this is the hypothesis part, is that there is way more nuclear fuel being made than anybody knows about. And what's most likely happening is a lot of these big caves that they're making to store the spent nuclear fuel is probably storing the nuclear fuels of the future.
The Earth is often the place to bury things you want to hide. Out of sight, out of mind. A burial site for radioactivity is under construction at a place in Finland called Onkalo, which means cavity or pit. When it opens in a few years, it will be the world's first permanent repository for high-level nuclear waste. When a fifth reactor is hooked to the grid later this year, nuclear energy will provide more than 40% of Finland's electricity. It's a carbon-free energy source, but it comes with a pitfall: spent fuel rods of highly enriched uranium. Operators cool the rods off in pools of water and store them in warehouses in interim casks, but they're vulnerable to leaks and accidents while they're above ground. Finland will be the first nation to permanently dispose of spent nuclear fuel. Robots will transfer the rods to giant copper casks, then bury them nearly half a kilometer below the surface. They must remain safe and dry for at least 100,000 years, into the next ice age, until the radioactive elements inside decay to acceptable levels. It's important to keep water from carrying radionuclides back to the surface, a dangerous scenario for ecosystems and human health. So Onkalo relies on a series of barriers to keep the copper casks safe. The first barrier is the rock itself. Hard crystalline rocks that have few pore spaces and are nearly impervious to water. Posiva, the Finnish waste company excavating Onkalo, mapped the cracks as its workers dug and built the repository, a method to keep them from becoming conduits for water. A second barrier is bentonite, a water-absorbing clay that will surround the casks and plug the burial holes. The bentonite will also block microbes from reaching the casks and speeding up corrosion processes. Finally, there's the copper itself. Posiva says it won't corrode in what little water there might be at such depth because it's oxygen-free. Onkalo is not just a technological tour de force. It's a model for navigating controversy. In France, the United Kingdom, and Sweden, deep nuclear waste repositories have been delayed or thwarted by public opposition. Experts say Posiva and the Finnish government were better at engaging with residents of Eurajoki, the town closest to Onkalo. Finnish law gave the municipality a veto in the siting process, and the company dangled the promise of jobs and tax income, as well as funding a new senior center. Culture could be another reason for Onkolo's success. Finns trust scientific expertise in state institutions, like the nation's nuclear regulator. The lack of state-level politics in Finland presents another advantage. In the United States, the Department of Energy's long-standing desire to build a repository at Yucca Mountain was thwarted because of antagonism from Nevada politicians.
To discuss the legislative draft before you and our opposition to Yucca Mountain.
Sometime around the year 2120, after Onkolo entombs 6,500 tons of waste, all of the access tunnels will be backfilled and sealed up. Surface structures will be dismantled. No sign of the repository will remain. But deep underground, the copper cask's vigil will just be beginning. There they'll rest in silence over the course of millennia, as seas and temperatures rise and civilizations come and go.
All of the pressure to decarbonize right now, all of the pressure to reduce fossil fuel consumption and everything else, going green, is probably behind the scenes just is being used as a way to have more fuels available to create more stored long-term energy. Now, I'm throwing a lot of things out there that are speculation, but it's not speculation to say that the best way to run a data center is a small form nuclear reactor, because you can have the energy nearby. The energy will be constant. You don't have to rely upon a grid. You don't lose energy transmitting power over a grid. And based upon the way it has already been created, and once you use it in that form, it's relative. They say it's carbon neutral. Carbon's already been created somewhere else, probably. But and it's also not speculation to say that if we are really in this new era of big data analytics, where there's this big AI and the continuation of taking control of the evolution of the human species, it's not speculation to say that the real surge in energy use is going to be in the future. So how is that energy going to be, where are they going to get that energy from?
Many people also believe that a vast quantity of energy, some have said up to 98% of the potential energy of enriched uranium, is still there when it's considered to be spent nuclear fuel. Now, I can't validate this, and some say that that's kind of a little bit misleading. But let's consider the possibility that tons and tons of uranium, which has only been used 2 or 3% enriched uranium, maybe the fact that it's being stored is a great excuse to keep all of that enriched uranium, the remaining 95% available for the future. And people are paying to have it stored, thinking that they need to stay away from it and that it's scary nuclear waste.
With the evolution of the human species being the thing that they're talking about, they're not saying that we'll figure it out later. They're not saying we'll throw in a few more windmills and solar panels. They know that it's possible that they will need multiple times the electricity in the future, when the population of the planet might actually be only 20% of what it is right now. How are those people going to get all that energy? Because you don't need to power the computers today if the data is still being accumulated to process anything. The real data and the real analytics, the AI, is going to be in the future. It's not here yet. So simply by taking a couple of things, and you don't even really need to do back of the napkin math. These are simple statements. It's simple. It's very simple logic, actually. And once with this simple logic, now you can have a new model, a new template of, oh, okay, they're not really fighting over, can Iran build the bomb? What's being fought over is which nations are going to have the greatest access to enriched uranium, which is being manufactured today and stored. Who gets it? Who has control over it? I guess there was, I don't even know what's true anymore in this area, but I guess there was a whole mountain full of it somewhere in Iran. And they said, don't worry about it. It's buried under the sand. We bombed that thing. I seriously doubt that. Not to mention, given the fact that the highest level of confidentiality ever is around this whole subject, there's no reason for us to trust any of the numbers regarding the actual quantity of nuclear fuels that are being made today. They could be multiple times that. We have no idea. We don't know. I will tell you that in my career working in the data storage industry, the most secure, the most security conscious, security phobic company or building that I ever worked in was Schlumberger. And they manage and they control, knowledge about where energy reserves are on the planet. Oh, my goodness. All I needed to do was to go in there and upgrade a couple of servers. I won't even tell you the manufacturer, but you could probably guess looking at my resume. Upgrade a couple servers and do some firmware updates. Oh, my goodness. I had to go through so many levels of security to get into that building. Anyways, so let me fire up the first video here. This is a 6-minute video here. This stuff, it's really kind of, it should be shocking.
These blue dots represent a massive potential source of clean energy, dormant nuclear power plants. This dot here will be used by energy company Constellation to power AI servers.
All the electricity it generates will be sold to one company, Microsoft.
Reviving nuclear has drawn support from Silicon Valley.
Microsoft is going to buy all the power output of 3 Mile Island. Microsoft. And that's just today.
Executives.
We see the need for gigawatts of power in the coming years.
Who could see it?
Gigawatts in the coming years. And knowing that the big data isn't going to be for several years after that. That means the power consumption isn't going to be 5 times higher in a few years. It will be 10, and I'll throw out there a number. It might even be 50 to 100 times higher. The amount of energy that they must be prepared to use. It's probably more than the current energy consumption of the planet, of all nations. They need to be prepared for that. Where are they going to get it? The only thing I can think of is that there's probably been a plan afoot to take enriched uranium for years already, and maybe even more going forward, and to store it somewhere. There's probably vast quantities of energy right now that's being used to make this. There could be other types of fuels as well that we're just not being told about. It's being stored somewhere. And of course we can't know where it is because it's just too dangerous. Big bombs, world can blow up. This speculation makes so much sense now why in the United States, the highest level of classification in the United States Department of Energy controls the Human Genome Project. It's not simply, they want to protect, all of this genomic data at a level of classification similar to nukes. It's actually the most important, longest-running, most well-funded, heavily funded, longest-running project in all of civilization, the Human Genome Project, which again, it's just taking control or determining how to take control of the evolution of the human species, cannot happen without a lot of energy. More energy than probably all the people on the planet today are using. How is that going to happen? How many people right now? First of all, they've already tricked much of the world's population into believing that vaccination is about, protecting them against infectious diseases. Most people don't even realize that they've already been converted in terms of this machine into the status of an experimental disposable test animal. They don't know that. Imagine then being told that they are being deprived of access to energy because they're storing it for 20, 40, 50 years from now when they have enough data that they actually want to determine using the computers at that time how to make the most of the data that's been collected and make progress on taking control of the evolution of the human species. Eventually, a lot of people are going to say, we don't like that. That doesn't sound like a good deal for us. And you know what? They're right. It's actually a horrible deal for everyone alive on the planet today. These decisions have been made, though, elsewhere. These are the decisions that are made not at Davos, but at like Davos Extra, Prime. There's things beyond Davos, which we just don't know about. These are decisions that have been made. Should we tell everyone that they need to stop using fuels because of climate change and this and that? Yeah, we'll scare people. I'm not saying that, go out and we should just be using all the fuel we can have possibly imagine. What I'm suggesting is that there's a lot of things here which sort of come together when you consider the reality. This is a truthful statement. The data that needs to be crunched and processed is not here yet. And the energy required to process that data 5, 10, 20 years from now is going to be enormous compared to the current consumption of energy for data centers and probably even relative to the current population. It is true that we will need to drastically increase the level of energy production in the future to power that, unless, of course, the energy can be collected today. And you don't think they're going to collect all the data and then say, well, now we need another several years to get the energy. They want the energy ready to go in the future. These are simple statements that require very, very little, it's just common sense. This is common sense stuff. So let's continue on here. Knowing that Microsoft is going to 3 Mile Island. By the way, this is actually remarkable because it was actually one of the physicists, I think it was Kilmeny. Oh, God, I can't think of the guy's name. That was in the Manhattan Project, was actually one of the people that was responsible for also developing Microsoft Basic. Let's just go back and restart this. It's amazing.
Energy. Dormant nuclear power plants. This dot here will be used by energy company Constellation to power AI servers.
All the electricity it generates will be sold to one company, Microsoft.
Reviving nuclear has drawn support from Silicon Valley executives.
We see the need for gigawatts of power in the coming years.
Who could see AI's demand for energy reach 90,000 gigawatt hours by 2026?
Please reopen the ones that have been shut. This is total.
And for those listening, this is Elon Musk saying this is total madness to shut them down. It's madness to shut down the nuclear power plants. Why? Is he saying because we should have more electricity to power appliances around the house? Musk is effectively saying that we need more energy to power AI, to power data centers for the purposes of understanding the machinery of human life. That's what he's saying. And Elon Musk knows very well the catastrophe that is afoot right now with respect to demographics on the planet. He knows it. He knows how bad it is. If you don't realize how bad it is, let me give you one example here, okay? And then I'm actually going to restart the video yet again. Let's go to Wikipedia, and then let's look up Taiwan demographics. Demographics of Taiwan. This is the population pyramid for Taiwan, okay? What this shows is that the range of people that have the greatest population, or I should say the most people in Taiwan, is people between the ages of 40 and 50. And as you can see, ages 60, 70, 80, 90. By the way, this is for the year 2025. Of course, not many people living over 100. This also shows that the birth rate in Taiwan right now is only, 60,000 females and about 60,000 males. In other words, right now, there are... See, let's look at this age bracket here. That's 200,000. There are, let's say, at age 49, 49-year-old males in Taiwan, 49-year-old males today in Taiwan, there are 200,000 49-year-old males, and there are 60,000 one-year-old males. That would mean that right now there's only, one child being born in Taiwan for every 3 that are dying? And as this population gets older, these people will need more help, making it even harder for younger people in Taiwan to have children. The percentage of the population of Taiwanese people will probably go down 60 to 80% over the next 100 years or more. China won't ever need to invade Taiwan. China just needs to wait till there's no more people in Taiwan, till they're all gone. Unfortunately, China's in the same trap. China's demographics, their population pyramid is equally bad. So if we need as many people as possible to be providing data to be processed in the future by the AI for the purposes of taking control of the evolution of the human species, we are in trouble because there's going to be less people in the future. Now, this is a bit of puts us into a little bit of a pickle here, because how do we know what data to collect now if we don't even have the algorithms figured out? This is a problem. This is a serious problem. My hypothesis on this, what I've been speculating, is that it was not known back in the year, say, 1975, 1980, that they would need as many people as possible to provide data for the purposes of this. I think they were actually looking to trim the population of the world, to preserve resources. They might have actually even known in the year 1980 that they were going to need more energy in the future for this project. They might have actually known 45 years ago that they were going to need more energy in 100 years in order to do the math for the purposes of the Human Genome Project. That they might have already been thinking that. So they made social changes. They effectively taxing people to have children. You have to pay heavy taxes to have children. That makes no sense. People should be financially incentivized to have children, especially people that have anyways. But that hasn't happened. And what has happened is it's gone so far negative, and now they realize they need as many people as possible. So Elon Musk knows this. Isn't Elon Musk, wasn't he like almost like a vice president of the United States, this South African guy? How the hell did that happen? This issue of needing energy and possibly in the future needing a lot of energy saved today for the future is known to Elon Musk. Now, I don't know if Elon Musk is the brainiac they say he is, or if he's just a brand. I don't know. I don't care, okay? Whether it's Elon Musk himself or the brand of Elon Musk and the people behind Elon Musk is kind of sort of irrelevant, okay? Because one way or the other, the ideas are going to come out through that blowhole of his, of a mouth. It's going to come out there. So I don't really care. But the ideas still are relevant. And this is the top level of government. This is the Trump campaign. We need to prioritize the future. This guy is saying we need to prioritize nuclear fuels, basically, for the future, for the data. Oh, wow. Well, it pretty freaking amazing, isn't it, that Donald Trump is bombing areas of enriched uranium in Iran. Oh, wow. I didn't see that one coming. Of all the places on the planet to drop some bombs and have enriched uranium go. Oh, wow. Isn't it crazy that the friend of our channel, Jonathan Cooey, at GigaOhm Biological, he's being manipulated with Americans like Piper Stover, little anti-Chinese woman up in Vermont, under the direction possibly of Richard Verma. You know, that man from Canada, the Indian man who was involved in both the Winburn Center and, more importantly, was an advisor on the Iran nuclear deal and was a former ambassador, U.S. ambassador to India, and was involved with Harry Reid on the civilian use of nuclear energy. Wow, it's kind of remarkable that all these people who are all of these thought leaders seem to have all of these ideas about where to enrich uranium, where to store it, where to process it, and oh, by the way, let's advance AI and genetic vaccines and personalized medicine. Isn't it amazing how many people are connected to personalized medicine and atomic bombs? There's no reason for that unless you consider the fact that it is a national security priority, but it's not nukes. It is the fight, it is the war over securing, controlling as much energy for the future as possible. The AI of the future can only be powered by enriched uranium. Even if a nation is sitting on a gazillion gallons of oil in the future, it won't matter. There won't even be enough people to convert that to energy. They know this. This is what's going. This is the battle behind the scenes right now. They don't want people to know this, of course. They can't know it. They don't want them to know it. Isn't it odd how I get heckled for questioning atomic nuclear weapons by people who I thought were all focusing on either there's no viruses or we need to advance personalized medicine? Why do they care? Oh, that's right, because these things are connected. Let's just restart it yet again.
These blue dots represent a massive potential source of clean energy, dormant nuclear power plants. This dot here will be used by energy company Constellation to power AI servers.
All the electricity it generates will be sold to one company, Microsoft.
Reviving nuclear has drawn support from Silicon Valley executives.
We see the need for gigawatts of power in the coming years.
Who could see AI's demand for energy reach 90,000 gigawatt hours by 2026?
Please reopen the ones that have been shut. This is total madness to shut them down.
But if you look 500 feet south of TMI-1, you'll find the site of America's worst nuclear meltdown.
An unexpected release of more radiation today from the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant has led to a series of consequences.
Now, 45 years later, as Constellation begins to restart TMI-1,
I don't think an operating plant has ever been revived.
Some experts urge caution.
Fundamentally, it's a dangerous technology.
Here's how the lights...
Is it really that dangerous of a technology? Is it really? A nuclear reactor meltdown. You know why it's dangerous? It's dangerous because of the water pressure buildup. That can cause such a serious explosion that it can actually launch pieces of concrete a mile. Being near a nuclear reactor, especially one that's made out of so much concrete, as it explodes because of the buildup of water pressure, is a recipe for dying. But it's not because nuke is so scary. I wouldn't even be surprised if they actually allowed or engineered one of those meltdowns just to reinforce fear amongst the public of how scary it is. Or maybe at one point they realize, holy cow, we shouldn't be using this nuclear fuel now. We could burn oil. This stuff is going to be valuable in the future. Let's just have a meltdown and take what's here and store it. Why not?
Are being turned back on at 3 Mile Island, and why it's critical the process be done safely. After TMI-2 melted down, TMI-1 generated power for 800,000 homes up until 2019, when it was shut down for financial reasons. Now, the team is moving forward with the historic restart of the plant without a regulatory roadmap. Current regulations are focused on building and relicensing, not restarting. So the team says it'll take 5 main steps. Step 1, they'll have to put uranium back into a decommissioned reactor.
The reactor vessel itself is probably about 70 feet tall, maybe about 14 feet in diameter. It's physically sitting maybe 10 feet off the ground from where I am, right behind us in the wall there. It's filled with fuel rods that are 17 by 17. Each rod is hundreds of fuel pellets the size of a Jolly Rancher.
The heat created from those uranium pellets will warm water until it becomes steam and travels through miles of pipes. That's why step 2 is to test the steam system. In the 1979 meltdown, a malfunction caused the pumps to stop sending water to the steam generator, causing a buildup of heat and then an automatic shutdown. When high pressure caused a valve to open here, it got stuck, unbeknownst to operators, allowing radioactive steam to leak out. In an effort to stem damage, the staff cut back water to the pressurizer, causing the core to overheat. These pipes are being tested with electronic probes to make sure there are no cracks or holes, which could throw off the delicate process. On the other end of the pipes is the turbine.
It's got multi-stages, 14 stages of blades, where they get bigger and bigger and bigger as the steam imparts its energy on it to create that rotational force, which then creates a magnetic field through a generator to put electricity on the grid.
These blades are being tested for strength to make sure they're up to the task. That energy is then transmitted to the transformers, which carry electricity from the plant to the grid. Step 3, replace them.
The voltage coming out.
You don't really need to see the rest of that. I mean, let's see here. So another thing I've already showed you guys this stuff here. Data center boom in the desert. AI race is transforming northwestern Nevada. I found that to be quite fascinating. Again, Nevada, northwestern Nevada in particular, the Reno area, Reno, Tahoe, and that's where the Whittemore Peterson Institute is. That Judy Mikovits was at. It's Harry Reid's old state. Harry Reid has 4 kids that work with the the Whittemore family. And the Whittemore family, the one that had this institute that hired Judy Mikovits. This is the part of the story that no one's ever documented before. Nobody has ever documented before how much genetic data was going to be there, or Harry Reid's, or the state's connection to nuclear deals, and now its a role in AI and data centers going forward. They simply left it as, Judy Mikovits in her flip-flops screwed up some data analysis and stole a laptop. She's crazy. She's crazy. We can't trust her anymore. I have a whole bunch of videos. I don't have a lot of steam, no pun intended, in the tank right now. I just kind of wanted to just rant a little bit and put some of these ideas out there to review a big part that is to review. Only nuclear. enriched uranium offers the opportunity to store so much energy for such a long period of time in such a small space. It provides an almost ideal fuel for when it is needed for data centers. These AI massive data centers will not reach their peak demand until actually decades from now. It's going to increase over the next 5 years, but the real demand will be decades from now. And it's projected that they will mostly be using small-form nuclear reactors. There will not be a population on the planet large enough to dramatically increase the total potential energy required in the future for those data centers. Meaning the energy must be collected, manufactured, and stored now. Full stop. There you go, Robert Malone. Full stop. It needs to be collected now. The collection of and the refining of and the storage of massive quantities of energy for the future would not be a very popular thing amongst many people of the world today. So I think most of this is being done without people's knowledge. It is why it's protected at such a high level of classification, making people afraid of nukes, nuclear bombs, and so on and so forth. Through this, it makes so much more sense why there's going to be so many more wars and so much more tension over uranium enrichment, etc. And it ties in perfectly with the future of personalized medicine, AI, etc., etc. It all just comes together. It fits so well. And I will, of course, be collecting more information about this going forward. But sometimes you just need to say, okay, here's the model. It's a general model. I know I don't have all the details figured out. But what's actually happening, I truly believe, is something that is more akin to this model than anything that most other people are perceiving today. And I think a few people do know this. I believe Elon Musk, or at least the brand of Elon Musk, is aware of it. I don't know which leaders are aware of it. I don't know. But this is the real meat and potatoes of all of these nuclear deals. It's not because Iranians are inherently crazy people that want to blow up Israel, and maybe a few do. I don't know, but that's not really what's happening here. All right, guys, I may do another show later. I needed to miss the peak heat today. Thank you for supporting my channel. Thank you for listening. I will do another one tomorrow. Absolutely, 4th of July. 249. Looking forward to it. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Take care, and God bless.